family announcement. Jennifer, Natalie, and Cindy have graciously volunteered to make sure that the March 8th dinner happens as it needs to. What we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pick up whatever we need to pick up and put it all in one bundle. And if you would like to give some money to the Bible chair to help cover those costs, then you can hand that to Josh or to myself, and we'll make sure that that gets back into the Bible chair fund. But everything is falling together nicely. We're looking forward to it. From 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock will be a time of just fellowship and games, mainly outside, we hope, for the young people who are going to come visit with us. We need some things like horseshoes, horseshoe set. We need some cornhole games, if you have one of those, or some other outside game that the kids might be able to play out on the back lot. We'll use the sand pit and the Bible chair for some of that entertainment as well. Then from 4 o'clock to 4:45, we'll have just a worship in a cappella music. So there won't be any preaching going on, just an opportunity to get together and sing. We're going to try to talk to the community about being here to enjoy that time of singing with us. And then at 5 o'clock, we will have a meal that will be pulled pork, brisket sandwiches, chips, and brownies. So if you're a brownie maker and that's something that you would like to do, you might talk to one of the girls to make sure that your name is on the list to do that. But otherwise, it sounds like things are all headed in the right direction to take care of that, and we'll tell you more about that as it gets closer. 3 weeks from today. Had a couple of questions after worship this morning that I thought were worthy for us to revisit. How many of you noticed that it said that their hearts were hardened, and that's why they didn't realize that Jesus could walk on the water? The fact that they had eaten the 5 loaves and 2 fish had fed 5,000 people, somehow their hearts were hardened, and they wanted to know, what does that mean, that their hearts were hardened? I have 2 possibilities, and perhaps you could think of others. One would be that God actually purposefully kept them from understanding. We know that that was true when Pharaoh was being inundated with all those plagues in Egypt. God hardened his heart to keep him from letting the people go until God was through with that mission. We also have Jesus telling people that he healed. Don't tell anybody. It's not time for everybody to understand what's going on. That would seem a little strange to me, given that this was a group of the apostles who were really kind of the inside group that Jesus would not want them to know. Of course, the other possibility is just human frailty, that while they were in the middle of all of this miraculous work, that somehow it just didn't sink in that Jesus would be able to do something the next step above. So let's start with that. There are 3 kinds of miracles in the gospel accounts. There are miracles of the physical, so think Jesus healing the lame man or Jesus healing the man who was born blind. There are the spiritual miracles. Casting out demons would be the most prominent one of those. And then there are the material. So you've got things that happen just concerning the material world. In school, sometimes we would use what's known as a KWL chart. Anybody familiar with KWL charts? The first column is, what do you already know? Here's where you are. The W is, what do we want to learn? And then the L is the follow-up, what did we learn? Well, take a look at it from a KWL point of view. What did they already know? They knew Jesus was powerful. They knew Jesus could do anything he set his mind to do it, even feeding 5,000 people. What did they not know? That this miracle of the material wasn't just about loaves and fishes, that Jesus was able to do something that was even a step above what they had imagined. So he takes them from the level of, okay, you can feed 5,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fish, and the thing that he teaches them is that I can apply that to anything in the physical realm. I can apply that to anything in the material world. So not only can I feed people with loaves and fishes, I can walk on the surface of the water. What they learned out of this was not just that Jesus had more power than they had anticipated or that they were paying attention to, But suddenly this triggers the idea that Jesus is the Son of God. Right? Okay, loaves and fishes is amazing. Walking on the water is next level stuff. So when Jesus shows up walking on the water, it raises their understanding of exactly who he is. Now, I did say that we talk a little bit more about Peter, and like I say, all of us are familiar with what Peter does and doesn't do in this passage. But Matthew tells us that when Peter gets out of the boat to go to Jesus, he actually begins walking on the water. Now, if you could just end the chapter there, if you could just say, okay, we've got a victory. Peter was able to get out of the boat. By his faith in Jesus, he was able to walk across the water. Then that's a great thing to just stoke our own energy and to encourage our own faith, that Peter, at the invitation of Jesus, was able to do something that was extraordinary. But it doesn't end there. Peter begins to worry. He's surrounded by things he cannot control. And because he's surrounded by things he cannot control, he believes that Jesus or the situation or the things that were true 2 seconds ago are no longer true. All of that just fades into the background, and he starts worrying about waves and wind. And as soon as that happens, just the nanosecond that happens, he begins to sink. But what's his response? He cries out to Jesus. Right? So things are going really well, then things are going really bad, then things are going exactly where they need to go. Peter says, Lord, save me, and Jesus does. Right? So if you tend to kind of look down on Peter for the mistake that he made, question number one is, would you have ever gotten out of that boat? Right? There was one Peter that got out of the boat. I don't know how many disciples were in the boat, but there was only one guy that got out. Right? So we need to praise him for that. And we need to praise him for knowing where to turn when things went south. Right? He stepped out on faith. He was trying to do what he thought was an amazing thing in the presence of Jesus. And when all that crumbled underneath his feet, he suddenly knew that he needed to cry out to Jesus. That may be the lesson that we really need to take home from this. Not that we can do amazing things through Jesus, although that's true, but that when the amazing turns south, that we don't give up on the source of our power in the first place. We don't give up on the one who authored our salvation when we make mistakes in the course of our salvation. So cry out to the Lord and let him pick you back up and get you back in the boat. And having done so, what do we learn? You really are the Christ. You really are the Son of the living God. If you need to respond, we want to encourage you if we can as we sing.